Bonjour, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of aMillionortheMoon. In today's video, I want to discuss what's going on with Bitcoin, the most recent flash crash, where we could be going next, the critical areas to look out for to understand when the bulls and bears may be in macro control, where I will be practicing risk management and de-risking and panicking about a bear market, the levels I'm looking out for that, and the most recent low cap gem I bought the dip on. So if you want to find out more, folks, do me a favor, like and subscribe, hit that bell icon to be notified of new uploads, and without further ado, let's read the tea leaves together. Alright folks, so before we delve into it, let's just take a second to appreciate my masterpiece, my art piece right here. I'm personally very proud of it. Look, there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of lines here, so I personally find this picture very pretty, and I hope you do as well. But folks, in all seriousness, these lines mean a lot of stuff and will really help us, to paint the picture of what can be going on with Bitcoin here. I will begin to declutter, but I first want to explain what all these levels mean and why they're so critical, because folks, whether we like it or not, Bitcoin moves the entire crypto market, and so it's very important to understand what's going on with Bitcoin. So right now we're looking at a weekly chart of Bitcoin, and we most recently had a substantial flash crash over here. Look at that, roughly 30% in a week. This is the most bearish weekly candle we've had since the May sell-off. So why did this happen? Folks, I think this was largely due to global macro market weakness with the stock market. Looking at the SPY here, which tracks the S&P 500, we can see that we've recently had pretty bearish, pretty red last week here. And this is largely why I think we saw the flash crash with Bitcoin. Looking at the VIX index here, this measures volatility and fear in the market. I'm not going to tell you how it's calculated. I'll leave a link down to Investopedia down in the description below so you can read up on what the VIX is. Folks, if you ever want to know what technical terminology means, make sure you go to Investopedia. Investopedia is your best friend if you're trying to learn technical analysis. So what this is basically telling us is that there's fear in the stock market. We're seeing that being translated in price action. There's the new big cough variant, the new transformer Omicron, or whatever it's called. And so that's leading to the greater markets being spooked. And whenever the greater markets are spooked, they deleverage from what they consider to be high risk or risk on assets. And while in crypto, we see, when we consider Bitcoin and Ethereum to be highly safe, the legacy markets do not think so. They consider them to be risks on assets, and so whenever their legacy is spooked, they de-risk, which means they sell off their crypto. Looking at the DXY as well, this also, I think, helps to measure greater macro market sentiment, especially when it comes to the legacy stock market, because whenever the dollar is rising, that can be interpreted as a hedge against the stock market, a hedge against kind of market weakness. So a healthy DXY and a pumping DXY has typically been interpreted as very bearish for Bitcoin, and we're seeing that. We're seeing Bitcoin crash while the DXY is rising. So, folks, if we want to know whether Bitcoin is going to continue to crash, we got to follow the stock market. If the stock market continues to tank, that's likely to be a bearish catalyst for Bitcoin. If we see volatility and fear increase, if we see the dollar continue to rally, likely to be a hedge against the stock market and perceived weakness, those are going to be factors that could lead us to see further downside continuation. Now, zooming in on Bitcoin and what's going on here, I believe there is a case to be made that we are forming a macro ascending triangle here, something like an ascending triangle here. The lower boundaries may change. We may come back down and revisit these lower regions, so I may have to readjust this. But point being, I do believe there is a strong case to be made that as long as Bitcoin continues these higher lows, that we're just forming this very macro ascending triangle here. All right, so let's get rid of this ascending triangle here so we can continue to declutter. Now, folks, if we zoom in real quick here to the daily, if my internet is working, it is, thank goodness. All right, so we are getting above the 200-day exponential moving average. This is a good sign that we may see a continued recovery rally here. Very likely to test kind of the mid $50,000 range, $54,000, $55,000, somewhere around there. That's where I would be looking for a bit of rejection and a bit of pause. Now, folks, If we can get above 59,000, 60,000, get daily candles opening and closing above that level, that is where I would consider Bitcoin to be more bullish and the downtrend being over. But until we get above that level, until we spend time above there, then make no mistake, we are in a downtrend. And even though we may experience a short-term relief rally to the mid $50,000 range, it could just be that, a short-term relief rally. Now, in an effort to further declutter, let's revisit the weekly here in our Ichimoku clouds. I just want to bring this up as another example of support around this mid to low $40,000 region. This is currently where our cloud is, so I would expect some kind of support coming in at those levels. At least another reason as to why support may come in at those levels. So that is the Ichimoku. That's gone. Looking at the weekly, folks, we have a critical support zone that held in the short term, paired with volume here, price action and volume paired to form this support zone at 56,700 to about 49. Sorry. 46. Did I say? What did I say? 46,000, about 46,600-ish to about $49,000. So I would expect that area to hold as support if we get rejected off that mid $50,000 region. Now, ultimately, folks, where I think it makes sense to be worried is if we start to put in any kind of macro lower lows, because even though this was a nasty flash crash, what do we still in fact have, folks? We have macro higher lows and higher highs, which is in fact a macro uptrend. So when it would truly start making sense to be worried is when we break that macro uptrend and we break that bullish price structure. And putting in a lower low below our danger zone here would constitute a breaking of the bullish macro bullish price structure, which has taken months to form. So getting weekly candles closing below 42,000 on a lower low, but truly our wick here at about 40,000 is where I would start to get concerned. And this is where, if we spend time below this region, where I think it starts to make sense about us potentially entering a bear market or some really extended correction and consolidation phase, the likelihood of a potential bear market greatly increases if Bitcoin puts in a lower low below this region. A weekly close below 43,000 would be very bad, but any kind of dailies closing below 39,000 would be absolutely terrible. And in that case, folks, we would have broken the macro bullish price structure, and a conversation about us entering a potential bear market is very likely in that case. Now, the reason why this region is so critical, not only is this our higher low here that we don't want to break, but we also have a blue buy signal on our hash ribbon indicator at the exact same level. This indicator has done a very good job of signaling the lows, historically speaking. If we just zoom out and see, every time we had a blue buy signal, it has historically signaled the lows, and we have never put it in a lower low after the blue dot, except the March 2020 crash, where we had a blue dot over here and we put in a lower low. But that was a black swan event, a highly bearish catalyst. So short of some random black swan event, whatever it may be, these blue buy signals have historically been extremely accurate when kind of showing us when the local low is. So folks, breaking below this danger zone would be extremely bearish, and that is what I'm looking out for as to when to start de-risking, when to start, I think, maybe selling off even at a loss if we start to spend time below these levels. Because if we spend time below these levels, then folks, 30,000, 20,000, 15,000 start to become very realistic. Now, I also have some white lines here. You may have asked yourself, hey, Brandon, why do you got these white lines? I'm going to explain to you why I got these white lines. I got these white lines here because of the daily RSI. Folks, every time the daily RSI has been this oversold, I placed a white line. So wouldn't you know it, that all these white lines happen to coincide with local bottoms, or at least pretty close. See, white line here, local bottom. Now, we did come to revisit these bottoms. See how there's this wick here. We did revisit the bottom, but we didn't break far below it. So these white areas really kind of show extremely oversold regions. I don't know why my internet is slow today. This does not seem to want to load here. So see, this is another time in which we were extremely oversold on the daily RSI, and that was the local bottom as well. Keep zooming out here. Let's see. This one might be a bit of a bad example. We might know if this loaded. Hold on here. I gotta make sure the song repeats. There we go. All right. So this was the RSI low, and right there. And see, that was the local bottom as well. So point being, folks, we've entered the extreme oversold region on the daily RSI for Bitcoin. And every time we've done this in the past, as we can see, it has been a local bottom. So folks, I do think this was the bottom for Bitcoin. We may come to revisit some of these lower levels in the mid $40,000 range off a rejection of the mid $50,000 range. But as long as we don't put in a macro lower low, as long as we hold this yellow line, the 55 exponential weekly moving average, as long as we maintain the macro higher low structure, then this could have just been similar to a correction to corrections we've seen in the past in a greater macro bull market. Now, something else to note is the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index. We are in extreme fear, which is bullish in my opinion, because we cannot these markets are highly driven by sentiment, folks, and we cannot exist in any one extreme forever. The overbought extreme, the oversold extreme. There's many ways to measure overbought and oversold, and one of the ways is to measure sentiment. And I'll leave a link down in the description below so you can read how they measure sentiment here. But folks, point being, look at every time we've entered these extremely fearful regions, we don't spend a whole lot of time there. We don't stay down there forever. And the last time we get, in the last couple times, we got this extremely fearful, we were close to local bottom. Now, as to whether or not we've topped off, we've had the cycle top. Bitcoin and crypto have historically moved in 4-year cycles. Folks, the 4-year cycles may be becoming less and less relevant and less clear moving forward due to greater outside influence, more money moving into this market, and so thus less volatility moving forward. But I do think that somewhat of a 4-year cycle still makes sense for crypto. It would be weird if we completely just all of a sudden threw away the 4-year cycles. And folks, we have a couple dozen cycle indicators that measure different things but ultimately show us the same thing: extreme overbought and oversold territories on a macro level for Bitcoin. We have multiple of these indicators. One very popular famous one is the Nupal, which measures the amount of holders holding Bitcoin in profit. And whenever too many people are making too much money too fast, the growth is unsustainable, and those blow off top unsustainable uptrend overbought territories have been historically marked with these blue euphoria zones. And so this is just but one example of many cycle indicators that still give Bitcoin more room to the upside. Every cycle top we've entered this blue euphoria zone, Bitcoin has not done it this time. Therefore, just among many other reasons as to why Bitcoin may have further upside and why we still may have not reached our top. Although something to note here is that there's a clear trend in the Nupal that I don't hear being spoken of, which is over here. We entered the first cycle back in 2011, 2012 here. We entered the blue euphoria zone 3 times. 2013, 2014, we entered it 2 times. 2017, we entered it once. And this time around, we didn't enter it at all. There's a clear trend here of the cycles getting less extreme, less overbought to the extreme end. So could it be that this was indeed the cycle top and that Bitcoin put in, a macro double top, and that moving forward we will not enter these extremely overbought territories? Well, that's theoretically a possibility, folks. And if Bitcoin starts to break down from our danger zone here, kind of the $40,000 to $39,000 area, well, then maybe moving forward, it makes sense that Bitcoin will not enter these extreme overbought territories moving forward. So folks, those are my thoughts with Bitcoin. I don't want to make this video too long, but I did promise I would mention the most recent low cap gem I bought the dip on, and that was Casper Labs CSPR. Folks, this is a layer 1 smart contract, highly scalable blockchain with fast blocks, cheap fees that nobody has heard about. In terms of the candidates that have the potential to be the next Solana, I do think that Casper Network is definitely up there in terms of what projects could be the next big layer 1 smart contract blockchain. Nobody's heard about this thing. I've been shilling it for months in our VIP Discord group. Make sure you check that out down in the description below if you want to sign up. The link to join is to our Patreon down in the description below. But bottom line, folks, I did buy the dip on this thing. I will be putting up more of an in-depth video on Casper Labs later in the week, so you have that to look forward to. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Just want to tease you with this thing, put it on your radar. I will be doing more of an in-depth video later on. I don't want to make this video too long. Folks, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Let me know if you agree with how I read the tea leaves down in the description below. And until next time, take care of yourself.
I do it again.